What's good, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another edition of the Not
Hold
Dead.
on one second, Christian. I'm trying to get this where I can hear you.
Oh, I'm just doing the intro right now, so take your time. Uh, I'm Cybermania, and today, welcome back. First of all, let's try this all over again. Welcome back to another edition of the Not Dead podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Christian, aka Cybermania, and normally my normal co-host Dustin would be joining me, but he's got to take a couple of weeks off. He's got some issues he's dealing with. So, in the process, I went ahead. I found a new co-host, and this new co-host is none other than Mr. Crowley. Mr. Crowley, are you there?
Hold
Not
on one
quite.
second.
Okay. Technical
Still having
difficulties
some
here, ladies
audio
and
problems
gentlemen.
here.
Are you there? Technical difficulties, ladies and gentlemen. But tonight rather, we are going to be discussing the year 1993 in pro wrestling. Three big things happening in 93, really. Um, and that's what we'll be covering tonight is the very first episode of WWF Monday Night Raw, which emanated from New York City. We'll also be covering WrestleMania 9, which took place in Vegas, of all places, and we'll be covering Ric Flair returning to WCW. All of that took place in the year 1993, and, well, another thing happened in 93. Your boy, myself, was born that year. So 93 was a great year. Mr. Crowley, are you ready to go? Nope, still technical difficulties. Okay. Um, well, we're gonna wait for Mr. Crowley here. Uh, yeah, like I said, '93. It was a great year. Um, three big events: WrestleMania 9, Raw. Also, just from a historical context, '93 was a pretty big year because the same month that I happened to be born, 3 days after that happened, uh, the World Trade Center bombings occurred. February 26, 1993 is when the World Trade Center was bombed, and that's not 9/11 necessarily, but it was still a pretty big deal, especially at that time. I think six people lost their lives. Um, it was a very tragic event, and then a month later, Waco took place. So hold up just a second, folks.
Hey, I'm going to have to try to fix this because I can't hear you. For some reason, my audio is messing up.
Yeah, so like I said, Mr. Crowley currently is having some technical difficulties. So we're going to let him hopefully fix those issues. I guess I'll just get started with some of these shows. Um, let's get started with Monday Night Raw, the very first episode of Raw. Now, I did an episode on this with my other co host, Dustin. I believe it was Dustin. It could have been somebody else. I believe it was Dustin. And actually, you know what? I think it was Zach Irvin. And we did a full episode on this. We did a long form. So I'll go briefly through the results. Yokozuna pinned Coco Beware um, with the backsplash in a corner and a bonsai drop in 3 minutes and 45 seconds. Um, Rick and Scott Steiner, the Steiner brothers, defeated the Executioners in 3 minutes and 1 second when Scott scored the pin following the top rope bulldog double team, and Doink the Clown was shown walking through the crowd. Hang on a second. Let me see if Mr. Crowd. No, not yet. Okay. Um, this is live, folks. Anything can happen when you're live, right? Um, Shawn Michaels, the Intercontinental Champion, he pinned Max Moon with a reversal into the side suplex in 9 minutes and 56 seconds rather. And again, Dunk the Clown was at ringside. Tito Santana pinned Mike Sharp, Iron Mike Sharp. The match did not air on television, but it took place during the Royal Rumble Center segment. Undertaker pinned Damien Demento with a tombstone at 2 minutes and 25 seconds. Damien Demento, there's a wrestling gimmick that is dead and buried, and probably for the best of reasons. Um, yeah. Uh, Hold on. WrestleMania 9. Well, we'll get to there in a minute. But yeah, that was. Um, Missed, during the bout, it was announced that Mr. Perfect would face Papa Shango, Ric Flair would face Tito Santana, and Bret Hart would appear for an interview the next week. So interesting that Bret Hart was not on the debut episode of Monday Night Raw. He was a focal point of that show, and you would think he would be a main part of the debut episode. Um, yeah, I just if you're gonna if you have a wrestling show and you have a world champion on your show and you're about to do a new TV show, I would think you should put your world champion on there. That's just me. Uh, let's just get into WrestleMania 9. We'll let Mr. Crowley give his opinions when he comes on. WrestleMania 9 took place in Vegas at Caesar's Palace on April 4th, 1993. A fun fact, I got to stay at Caesar's Palace this year for my birthday. That's kind of cool. That was really cool, actually. That was a nice hotel. Um, let's scroll down a little too far. Uh, Tito Santana pinned Papa Shango in 7 minutes and 37 seconds after Shango missed an elbow drop off the top rope. So Tito Santana beat Papa Shango, and that must have been a pre-show or a pre-match thing or a pre-show match type deal. Um, Continuing this show, um, I guess I should mention real quick. 15,045 people and were there. 14,000 people paid, and it was announced at 16,000 people that were there. So there's some numbers if you want some numbers for you. Um, okay, Tatanka defeated the Intercontinental Champion Shawn Michaels by countout in 18 minutes and 15 seconds. After he missed a missed dive to the floor and his head hit the ring steps. Um, yeah, 15 or 18 minutes and 15 seconds in 1993 for a wrestling match. I mean that you save those long matches for main events typically. Um, yeah. Let me try this. Hold up. We're gonna try something here, folks. So bear with us. Once again, technical difficulties with Mr. Crowley. So bear with us. Mr. Crowley, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there. I'm having trouble with doing the StreamYard. For some reason, it disconnects from my audio.
I'm going to see something here real quick. I'm going to see if we could just do it this way.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, because that's coming through my speakers fine. But when I switch over to StreamYard, it for some reason it cuts off, and I don't know why.
This way.
Doing that. Yeah, we can.
Yeah, this works just fine. I just checked this on my phone. We're good to go. We'll just do it this way, Mr. Crowley. I kind of went through both shows, not all through WrestleMania 9, but I went through Raw already. What are your thoughts on the very first episode of Raw?
It was an interesting episode. You see, I actually remember some of it. I remember that Shawn Michaels was the Intercontinental Champion at the time.
Yep, he pinned Max Moon.
It wasn't the most star-studded show to start. It really wasn't as a banger as of course, Monday Nitro.
No.
but I mean, a lot of people don't realize that the guy that the Undertaker fought, I believe it was Demon Demonte or
Damien Demento.
Yeah, see, he's another one of those guys that's kind of unforgettable. A lot of people remember the feud he had with him, so
I just said he was forgettable, but
basically,
yeah.
But,
you said it wasn't a star-studded show. You look at the roster lineup on this show. You had the Steiner brothers, you had Yokozuna, you had Shawn Michaels, and you had the Undertaker. But the thing is, Bret Hart was the WWF champion at the time, and he wasn't on the show at all. He was promoted for the next show. And I was just saying, I think that if you're going to debut a brand new show for your company, you should have your world champion there.
Well, you want to make it as star-studded as you can. I mean, and this is really at the height of Bret's career because Bret would go on to have some unbelievable matches after that. So, I mean,
yes, he would.
If I remember right, they had to talk, and I know that Doink the Clown was there, and there was a feud that Doink was having with a guy named Crush.
Doink appeared on this show through the crowd. He kept coming through the crowd, and he was.
It just wasn't a show. It wasn't a memorable show, and I think it's one of the reasons why when Nitro started, how they started to just pound the WWE. It just it was. I mean, it was I think for almost a 2-year stretch, WWF was really down, and I think a lot of it had to do with the kind of booking, of course, as you can see. Now, McMahon at that time was on. He was on commentary, if I remember right. He was on commentary, and I think Macho Man was on commentary. I know that Heenan was going to be on commentary until probably December. Then he was leaving because I think Jim Cornette filled in, and I think there's some others that I remember.
1993 was that when the steroid trials began? I'm not saying was that when they began, like when they came at him.
I'm not sure if that's when they began. I think the first allegations came out at that time.
Yeah.
I think it's more toward the end of the year because supposedly Lex Luger was lumped into all that too. So I mean. And, Luger really didn't show up until around, he was there, but his main run was around June or July or whatever. And I think toward the end of that year is when he showed up. It was when the whole issue with that showed up.
Yeah. And then we were discussing WrestleMania 9. I also gave some little tidbits. 93 was the year I was born. And, I was actually born. Remember the World Trade Center bombings that took place in 93? I was born 3 days before that.
Wow.
Yeah. I
had just gotten out of the military.
Okay.
And I was about to get married. I got married in 94.
Okay.
That was my first. And then my first child was born in 97. But I mean, again, I've told you, I've been watching wrestling since I was 10 years old. So, I mean, I've watched quite a bit of wrestling.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, this is Mr. Crowley, by the way. This is Mr. Crowley. That's what we're going to call you. You're Mr. Crowley.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I was just talking about Caesar's Palace. I got to stay there for my birthday this year. I got to go to Vegas, and I got to stay in that hotel this year. It was a nice hotel. Very nice hotel.
There you go.
Yeah.
I stayed at the Excalibur before in Vegas. Yeah, it was the one prior to this one because the one that I had stayed in, they tore it down and they built a new one there.
This was the very first time. This year was the very first year I got to go to Vegas. So it was really, really cool that the first time I ever got to go to Vegas, I got to stay in Caesar's Palace. I thought that was pretty cool. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. You know what I mean? So we were talking about WrestleMania 9. We covered Tatanka defeating Shawn Michaels by count out in 18 minutes and 15 seconds. And we were about to I was about to talk about Rick and Scott Steiner defeating. What up?
Right.
Yeah, Rick and Scott defeated Steiner. I should say Rick and Scott Steiner defeated.
I believe they were champions coming into that. Or
Was
Right.
it, it doesn't say if this was a tag team championship match or not.
Well, no, I was reading about. I know that. Trying to think if they had the
No,
titles.
wait.
I don't
No,
know.
yeah, hang on. Just to correct you, Ted DiBiase and IRS were the tag team champions here,
Right. Yep.
not the Steiners.
Yeah.
But the Steiners defeated the Head Shrinkers in 14 minutes and 22
Right.
seconds. Scott Steiner pinned Samu with the Frankensteiner. And Jim Ross had announced during the match that Luna Vachon had attacked Sensational Sherry backstage in the first
Right.
aid center. So, wow. And little tidbit, this was the Head Shrinkers' very first television loss. So,
Oh yeah, I remember the Head Shrinkers.
yeah, they were wild. They were wild. They were Samoan. Samoans are wild.
Well, yeah, and plus the Samoans put on great matches. To me, they always put on great matches. I don't know if you know.
Even The Rock has had his classic matches.
Right.
I mean, yeah. Doink the Clown pinned Crush in 8 minutes and 28 seconds. This was that feud you were talking about during the Raw.
Yeah.
And a second Doink interfered.
Right.
So, yeah. After the bout, Bill Alfonso informed the referee, Joey Morella, about what had happened. But when Alfonso went to look underneath the ring, the second Doink was no longer there.
Right.
Interesting.
And I think at some point too, he had a small Doink. There was another Doink the Clown.
Yeah, Razor Ramon pinned Bob Backlund in 3 minutes and 45 seconds with an inside cradle. During the contest, the crowd briefly chanted Razor. Moments later, the commentary team made mention of Lex Luger knocking world champion Bret Hart out during the WrestleMania 9 brunch. Any thoughts on that?
Say it one more time. I only caught part of it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had to close my door. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. I said, where did it go? I just had it. Oh, here it is. Razor Ramon pinned Bob Backlund in 3 minutes and 45 seconds with an inside cradle. And during the contest, the crowd briefly chanted Razor. Moments later, the commentary team made mention of Lex Luger knocking out WWF World Champion Bret Hart during the WrestleMania 9 brunch held earlier in the day.
Oh yeah, I remember bits and pieces of that one.
WrestleMania 9, is that a memorable pay-per-view, do you think, or is that kind of just one of those? Eh?
Well, I'm gonna tell you the memorable part of that pay-per-view is the fact that he put the belt on Hogan again.
Yeah,
I don't know if you remember.
We'll get there.
Okay, well, I guess you could say, the Undertaker had one of the more unrememberable matches with the Giant Gonzalez. I don't know if you remember. He had a series of matches with him that were feuded, and it was just awful matches. I mean,
oh God.
He even talked about how it was just this guy was just a big Argentinian guy that played basketball, that was tall, couldn't wrestle.
He played basketball or he played tennis?
I heard he played basketball too.
Okay.
But they put him in that stupid outfit, that big long whatever looking suit that he wore, and
I was thinking Sid. That's my bad. You were talking about Giant Gonzalez. My bad.
And his manager was Harvey Whippleman, so
Mm-hmm. Former women's champion. Former women's champion Harvey Whippleman.
Right. But this was, it wasn't a terrible pay-per-view because normally back in that era, most of the WWF pay-per-views were actually pretty dang good.
Yeah, they're still good today. I still think that their pay-per-views are pretty good today.
Yeah, I would say one or two matches here or there, but an entire pay-per-view for the WWE right now, I've not seen a solid card yet. Not in a while, in my opinion. But I mean, you do have a match here, a match there.
Yeah,
like a lot of the Roman stuff that we've discussed. It's really good. I think it's class.
Yeah.
They just don't have anything else, I think, to fill out the cards that really keep that person's attention.
Right.
Particularly not the older class. can say the older school guys. No, it's you know, we're wanting more.
Continuing with this show,
we're wanting more wrestling and stuff like that. You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah. WWF Tag Team Champions Ted DiBiase and IRS, which is Irvin R. Shyster. What a heck of a name that was.
Bray Wyatt's dad.
Yeah. Right.
Yep.
And Bo Dallas's dad.
Yep.
They defeated Hulk Hogan and Brutus Beefcake by disqualification in 18 minutes and 43 seconds.
Right. Well, you know, a lot of people don't know that back then, Hulk rarely would do a job. And the only time he would do a job would be on a DQ, or if the other guy was being pinned, let's say if it was a tag team match such as this.
Yeah.
You know, he was pretty much a pathetic human being. A lot of people don't realize it.
It says Danny Davis came out ringside and informed referee Earl Hebner, who was still knocked out, and they awarded the match to the champions after Hogan used Beefcake's steel face protector as a weapon. So not only was he cheated. He did cheat.
Right. Well, there was a period of time too, though, you know, where Danny Davis was a heel referee.
Yeah. But in this case, he was right to disqualify Hogan and Beefcake. Hart turned his puck. There's a lot going on in this match. I'm just going to read what I have written here.
Sure.
WWF Tag Team Champions Ted DiBiase and IRS defeated Hulk Hogan and Brutus Beefcake with Jimmy Hart via disqualification in 18 minutes and 43 seconds. When referee Danny Davis came ringside, while referee Earl Hebner was knocked out, and awarded the match to the champions after he used Beefcake's steel face protector as a weapon, with Hogan and Beefcake then receiving double pinfalls by Hart after Hart turned his jacket inside out to reveal a referee striped inside, referee striped shirt inside. Prior to the bout, it was mentioned that Hogan was jumped the night before outside of a gym to explain his swollen eye. Early in the match, the champions attempted to walk out of the bout and take a count-out loss to keep their titles intact, but then the referee ordered them to return to the ring or forfeit their titles. After the bout, Hart threw Danny Davis out of the ring. Moments later, Hogan, Beefcake, and Hart went around the ringside, handing out cash found in Money Inc.'s briefcase, which had been left ringside. Oh boy! And in Vegas, handing people money. Oh boy!
I don't quite remember that match, but that sounded like a pretty fun match. You know, I mean, those kinds of tag matches back in that day, that's pretty good, especially the build up to those matches.
Also, this is Hogan's first TV match.
Great heel.
And also, this is Hogan's first TV match in a year. And this is Beefcake's last television match.
Yeah, sure is.
So one goes in, one goes out. Yeah.
But you know, to be honest with you, I really wasn't a fan of Brutus the Barber Beefcake.
Nobody was.
You're not the only
one. Nobody was a fan of Brutus the Barber Beefcake.
Yeah, he was never main event material.
He was always there riding Hogan's coattails.
Basically, yeah. You know,
even in WCW, he did it. Even in WCW,
for a little bit, he was a heel kind of player, originally, but he kind of phased out.
Next match, Lex Luger pinned Mr. Perfect in 10 minutes and 56 seconds by blocking Mr. Perfect's attempt at a backslide and applying his own for the win. Even though Mr. Perfect's feet were on the middle ropes during the cover, prior to the bout, Luger was accompanied to the ring by several bikini-clad women. Okay, we don't need to talk about all that. His entrance was great. Go watch his entrance.
Well, I'm surprised they put him over Hennig, because Hennig was up until he died not too long after that. I want to say it was later in that year or the next year, because I think his run basically fizzled out after let's say around December. I think that was when he was gone, and I think he made a short stint in WCW, and then that was it. I know that he had the issue with pain pills and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. In the '90s, and especially around this time. Yeah.
Do you remember Mr. Perfect at all?
I do remember Mr. Perfect hard hitting. I've seen a couple of his matches. He had great ones with Bret Hart.
He had the fisherman suplex. That was his finisher.
That was the perfect plex. That's what that was. Yeah. Called. I remember him. I remember him, and he would slap the gum out of his mouth. Yeah. Like you'd spit the gum and slap it. Yeah. Those Mr. Perfect vignettes. Yeah. Yeah, I like I said, I was born in '93, but I do my homework on some of this stuff. And
he's an amazing wrestler, and I've watched him wrestle quite a bit. He's an amazing wrestler, really, really talented. He's one of the few that can sit there and grapple. He was an honest to goodness. He wasn't no slouch, that's for sure.
Yeah. Next match. This match had a slouch in it. It was Undertaker beating Giant Gonzalez. By DQ, yeah. In 7 minutes and 32 seconds, Gonzalez smothered Taker with a rag soaked in chloroform. Wow, how many times does that happen in professional wrestling?
Right.
Yeah, that should be a disqualification. That's really unique. After headbutting Paul Bearer off of the ring apron, after the match, Gonzalez choke slammed referee Bill Alfonso, spelled incorrectly here, as the Undertaker was rolled onto a stretcher, and then the Undertaker's gong was sounded, and he staggered away. He staggered his way, as I staggered my way through this sentence. He staggered his way back to the ring, where he eventually took Gonzalez down and out of the ring with a flying clothesline. Gonzalez was then escorted backstage by security, and the Undertaker. Man, this match is, of all the Undertaker's WrestleMania matches, this might be the worst.
It was a terrible feud. I mean, all the build-up towards it was just awful because the Giant Gonzalez was so lanky and he just couldn't do a whole lot in the ring. And I was really surprised, that they really tried to put this. But, I give it to Taker, though. He tried to work with the guy. And
he did. He did his best.
He mentioned in an interview that was the longest amount of time, and he wanted to be in there and out of there quick. He did not want it to go as long as it did.
7 minutes and 32 seconds.
Right?
Yeah, I think with giant versus giant matches, you got to keep them short and sweet.
Right. It's almost like that. I mean, you don't remember the Big John Studd. The Big John Studd matches were boring.
Yeah.
I mean, they were lethargic and boring, just like with King Kong Bundy and these bigger guys like that.
Yeah, Giant Gonzalez never was a guy that was going to have 5-star matches, I don't think.
No, not at all. No.
Hey, just a quick plug here. If you're watching this live, hit that thumbs up, and also hit the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed, and hit the notification bell so you get notified when we upload new content. I upload new content weekly. And if you don't subscribe, Rikishi will come to your house and give you the stink face.
You got it.
So, I mean, yeah. And I want to, before we continue with the show, I wanted to say special thank you to you, Jonathan. I told everybody that my current co-host, Dustin, is to take a leave of absence for a while, and you have decided to fill in for his place, fill in for him. So thank you, Mr. Crowley. It's great to have you with us. We appreciate you. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Yeah. Continue with the show. Enough with the sappy stuff. Yokozuna defeated world champion Bret Hart to win. Now, this match, there was a lot happening here. Happening here. So let's just break this one down real quick. Yokozuna with Mr. Fiji. I always thought it was pronounced Fuiji. It's just Fiji. Yokozuna with Mr. Fiji pinned world champion Bret Hart to win the championship in 8 minutes and 56 seconds after Mr. Fiji threw salt in Bret Hart's eyes as the sharpshooter was applied. So dissect that real quick. A heel win at WrestleMania.
Honestly, classic heel move.
Yeah.
And Vince and Vince had been wanting to push Yokozuna. He wanted a heel champion at the time. And I think they had already worked something out, but they were just trying to figure out how to put Yoko over without making Brett look bad. I think that was the main thing.
Vince wanted a heel world champion. You say he got the world champion right here with Yokozuna, but wait, there's more because moments later, Mr. Fiji issued Hulk Hogan an immediate challenge. Hang on, I sped up. Immediately after the match, Hulk Hogan came out to tell the referee what happened. And moments later, Mr. Fiji announced that Mr. Fiji issued Hulk Hogan an immediate challenge, eventually offering to put up the title. It was not until after Hart encouraged him to do so that Hogan accepted. Now, in real life, do you think Bret Hart was trying to get Hogan a title shot?
Heck no.
No.
I'm sure Bret felt screwed over. Of course, he eventually gets screwed over in Montreal, but Hogan, man, Hogan was all about Hogan.
Right.
Right. He didn't care about putting anybody over.
No.
It was all about him. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, Vince bought into it. I thought it was, with Yokozuna, and I know that I think that maybe they really felt they couldn't rely on Yokozuna because his weight continued to balloon on and on. He got bigger and bigger, and eventually the guy couldn't do it anymore. So and I'm sure that Vince was looking at his durability. So maybe that's why on the sperm, I should say sperm at the moment. That's what Jim Cornette always says. Maybe that's why they decided to allow that kind of a finish. I thought it was one of the screwiest finishes of any of the pay-per-views, any of the WrestleManias ever.
Yep, I would agree with that. That leads us to the next match, which ended up being the main event of the show. Hulk Hogan pinned world champion Yokozuna with Mr. Fiji to win the WWF Championship with a clothesline and a leg drop in 23 seconds. After Mr. Fiji accidentally threw the salt in the champion's eyes, then the bell never rang to begin the match. So technically, that should never have happened, but
the lamest finisher ever.
Yeah, and then I believe King of the Ring 1993. Let me do some research here, but that was Hogan's last show with the WWF for a while.
Yeah, I think it is. Well, I think Hogan winded up giving it back to Yokozuna. I think Yokozuna beat him for it. I think he beat Yokozuna.
I'm pulling up the results. Bret Hart. So it happened. So you're right. Hogan left after King of the Ring. Yokozuna defeated Hulk Hogan. Yes, in 13 minutes and 8 seconds.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there was all kinds of interference and all that good stuff.
Oh, sure. Hogan's never going to lose clean.
No. I'm trying to find some info about this main event. So it says here, according to Wikipedia, Hulk Hogan defended the title against Yokozuna. Yokozuna controlled the beginning of the match until he ran at Hogan in the corner, but missed an avalanche splash. Hogan tried twice to body slam Yokozuna, but could not pick him up. Yokozuna performed a bear hug on Hogan and tried to pin him after executing a belly-to-belly suplex. Hogan kicked Yokozuna in the face 3 times, so big boot to the face 3 times, knocked him down to the mat. He performed a leg drop, his signature move, on Yokozuna, but was unable to pin him. As Hogan prepared to attempt to body slam Yokozuna, Harvey Whippleman, disguised as a planted photographer, jumped up onto the edge of the ring. His camera exploded in Hogan's face. Oh boy. Which allowed Yokozuna to knock Hogan down and perform a leg drop. And that's how Yokozuna pinned Hogan. And bye-bye Hogan. Ship him off to WCW.
That's right.
Yep. Yeah, this show is just not that memorable, man. I mean, it was cool that it was in Vegas. It was cool, I
Right.
guess. But that was about it. And the entrances were the coolest part of the show.
Well, if you remember, all
Matches,
that was all outdoors, so it was pretty cool. It was a pretty decent. I mean, it was a cool pay per view.
yeah, it was yeah. Aesthetically, it was really cool, but match
No,
wise, it was you know,
no, it was garbage. That's
yeah,
one of the worst WrestleManias I think ever. I mean, well, yeah, it's one of the worst ones. Um,
match wise, yeah,
but after that point, though, Yokozuna became a transitional champion. Because I think eventually he drops it to Brett again, so that'll become Brett's second run
yeah.
as WWF champion.
Bret Hart versus Hulk Hogan, both as baby faces in the WWF.
Yeah,
Why do you think that match never took place? I mean, obviously you can say, well, because Hogan didn't want it to happen. He didn't want to wrestle Bret Hart. He felt Bret was beneath him. I think that's an obvious answer.
Stone Cold Steve Austin wouldn't wrestle Hulk either because he knew that Hulk wouldn't give him a good match. That's what he knew.
Hulk, I don't think Hogan could give anybody a good match.
Hulk's time was, right after he beat the Iron Sheik, and he had that incredible run, and most of his matches were against these big guys.
Yeah.
Where during that era, it was perfectly fine to have that kind of a champion with that kind of charisma. But as you got into the '90s, his style just was obsolete. So you got into to me, it was the era of Bret. I thought that he was the epitome of the '90s champion. Of course, you're going to have Shawn Michaels come down the line, and Steve Austin eventually. You'd have these slender guys that aren't true heavyweights that become, they're more of the technical aspect of wrestler.
Right. I thought that, I guess I was wrong, but I thought that Randy Savage versus Ric Flair was on this card.
And I thought, I'm not sure, but I know Macho Man was doing a lot of commentating that year.
I guess he was on commentary. Yeah.
I think '93 was his last year with WWF also.
Yeah.
I think he wound up. Yeah. I think he wound up around the same time Hogan showed up.
He was a commentator, so I guess what I'm thinking of was Hogan and Flair was or Hogan and Savage, or sorry, ladies and gentlemen, Savage and Flair was the year before WrestleMania 8.
Right.
There you go.
Okay.
That makes sense. Yeah, let's do this. Actually, that looks cool. Sorry, I was about to switch up to how the video looks, but it looks fine the way it is, so we'll leave it there. One other thing I wanted to discuss before I let you go here, because I know you got work. I got my uncle here watching Raw with me. Say hi, Uncle Ronnie.
Hello, Uncle Ronnie.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
Yeah, he's watching Raw with me. We're just
spending time with CJ.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Or as he said, Cyblemania.
Yeah. You can call me CJ or Cyblemania. It doesn't matter to me. I have a lot of nicknames. But the other thing I wanted to discuss from 1993, Ric Flair returning to WCW. He returned in March. He returned on March 20th, 1993, to be exact, as a babyface.
And when he returned, Rick cut his hair. Rick didn't have the long golden flock that he had, and when he showed up in WCW, he cut his hair. And that was the first time he changed. That's when he changed his hairstyle, because he was, he had the long flowing locks and stuff the longest time.
Yeah. Those gorgeous locks. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. He feuded with Vader in '93 for the World Championship. Do you think him leaving WWF hurt the WWF in any way, shape, or form?
Say that one more time.
Do you think that him leaving WWF at this time hurt them in any way, shape, or form?
I don't think so. I think it was cool that Rick went when he did, because I think at that time, he wanted to see, I know that, he was behind the scenes. He was the booker for a long time for the show. So I think when they had the management change. Turner lost it, and then Crockett sold it. And they had all kinds of mishmash, a bunch of people trying to run the company. And it was so bad at one point, that's why Flair took off and left. Because the money was just too good. And so when he saw that it wasn't, when he saw that WCW was coming back, it was going to be under new management, it was going to be Eric Bischoff running it, I think that's what attracted him to come back, plus the money. Plus he was going to get the book again. So, and with Vince, Vince controls everything. So
right.
He knew that he wasn't going to get the push that he needed there because, Vince, of course, squashes everybody that's part of the WCW or NWA.
Oh, we know that to be a fact.
Yeah.
Just a final question for you before I let you go. 1993 in the grand scheme of things in pro wrestling, do you think it'll go down as do you think it will go down as one of the more memorable years, or is it just one of those years before the big stuff started happening?
Yeah, I'm gonna say meh. It was more of a meh year in wrestling because you got to think in '94, that's when a lot of stuff happened.
Yeah.
That's when the Monday Night Wars really blew up and began.
Well, 95 was because that's when WCW debuted.
That's just, I think that, it started to really get a lot better, because I know the WWF went through a drought. I think when it came to talent-wise, with that drought, and then just before the Attitude Era really began, Stone Cold showed up, and you had Rock, and once you started having these players show up, you could see the whole roster turn over, and then it became good. Of course, when Nitro kicked in, man, I can't tell you how great it was as a wrestling fan to be able to flip back and forth between two shows, because I used to do it all the time.
Yeah.
I flipped from Raw to Nitro, back to Raw to Nitro, back and forth,
Just to correct you, Nitro debuted in 95, not 94.
Yep, right.
Yeah.
But it was
next week, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be covering the year 1997. We're going to talk about a lot of things that happened in 1997, including the rise of the NWO. Obviously, we're going to talk about the Montreal Screwjob. And we're going to talk about the popularity of Stone Cold. A lot of stuff next week. So next week's show is going to be busy. So definitely tune into that next week. Like I said, if you like this video, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe button if you're not already subscribed, and if you don't, Mr. Crowley, warn them what happens, please.
Stick Bay City.
Once again, I want to thank Mr. Crowley for being my guest co-host this week. Thank you, Mr. Crowley. Look forward to talking with you next week. That's going to be it for this edition of the Not Dead podcast. I'm Sabomania. He's Mr. Crowley. And you know what we're doing? We're signing out. Bye-bye, everybody.